Cenk, just because we're not shooting guns and dropping bombs doesn't mean we're not at war with China, bro. Trust me, they're poisoning the minds of the kids with that freaking TikTok crap. They send fentanyl through our freaking border that's killing Americans. All right, they steal all of our, how much more signs do you need to say that they are the enemy? Just because there's no bullets shot doesn't mean they're not the enemy, Cenk. And I think that attitude is the same attitude on why they've just been plowing us for all these years, but it's because we're like, nah, they're not a real threat, bro. We were just pushed this thing, Russia's the threat, Putin this, Putin that. No, it's Xi Jinping and their freaking country, bro, a freaking dictator, communist that treats his citizens like freaking slaves.
In today's video, Cenk Uygur absolutely destroys Vincent Oshana on the Piers Morgan show about China and Trump's tariffs. Vincent came in hot with the usual MAGA talking points about China, how tariffs are gonna somehow fix everything, how Trump is playing 4D chess, and of course blaming Biden for literally everything. But Cenk came ready. He broke it down with actual facts, how Trump's tariffs ended up costing American consumers more, not China, how manufacturing jobs didn't magically come back, and how this tough guy trade war was more cosplay than policy. So let's dive in and watch how Cenk Uygur shuts down Vincent Oshana in this heated debate.
All right, Cenk, like actual slaves. They have freaking slave work camps, and if you don't have this guy's picture up in your freaking house and they come in, you're finished. Your family disappears. All right, Cenk, this isn't a guy to take lightly, and Trump,
Vinny,
like I said, is the only one that's going to step up and fight this guy. Period. Done deal.
Vinny, they have people named Uyghurs. That's my last name. Uyghur Turks in concentration camps. I understand exactly how bad the Chinese government is, but we don't need to go to war with them for no reason. Let's do tough economic sanctions that make sense, or tariffs that make sense, or other economic measures that make sense that get parity and equality back for the American people. Let's not let our corporate goons write these deals in a way that advantages them and China and leaves out the average American. But we don't need to get militaristic, even though they're a terrible regime. I understand exactly how terrible they are, but we don't have to constantly push towards military conflict.
Very quickly, I just
you know what, Cenk, is well, hang on. Don't talk at once. The interesting thing, Cenk, about that is that if you look at how aggressively China has been expanding its military in the last decade, and you look at the jungle drums beating about a possible invasion of Taiwan and what the impact of such an invasion would have, not least on America, given the amount of stuff that America gets in from Taiwan, you know, the big ultimate military test may well come if Xi Jinping tries his luck and goes into Taiwan to see what America does. And China now has a military that is massively bigger and expanding at a terrifying rate, frankly, to potentially take on the United States in a military conflict. So I do think there's a slight naivety about, well, you can park the two things apart. One can be an economic war, and we shouldn't have to worry about them militarily. I think there are enough signs there to suggest that absolutely the world should be waking up to the potential military threat from China. And absolutely we should be fearful of an invasion of Taiwan.
So, Piers, you don't have to be naive about it, and you don't have to say, hey, let's not prepare. Should we be thoroughly prepared if China takes military action? Of course we should. Same is true of Russia, but we didn't have to get, threatened to bring NATO all the way up to Russia's border. Nancy Pelosi didn't have to go to Taiwan to egg on the Chinese government. We are purposely pushing buttons in Russia and China that leads, and by the way, in the Middle East, that potentially leads to more war. Let's be prepared. Let's be tough. Let's make sure that they understand the consequences, and let's deliver those consequences if they go to a military route. But if we push them to a military route, or we try to get ahead of them, we're going to needlessly engage in military conflict that hurts all sides.
Vincent came in hot with the classic MAGA panic lines. TikTok is a psyop. China's sending fentanyl. We're in a silent war. Look, nobody's denying the Chinese government is authoritarian. Cenk even pointed out that his own ethnic group is literally in concentration camps in China. But the difference is Cenk didn't let that spiral into warmongering. He focused on what actually works: smart, targeted economic policy, not performative aggression. And here's where Cenk's take really holds up. Trump's trade war, it didn't just bring jobs back. A study by the Peterson Institute found that US companies and consumers bore over 90% of the cost of Trump's tariffs. That's not fighting for American workers, that's just an expensive PR stunt. Also, let's talk about TikTok. If we're serious about cybersecurity, we need legislation that applies to all platforms, not just foreign ones we use as scapegoats. Facebook and Instagram mine your data too, just with a different flag on the login screen. Cenk is saying yes, let's be tough on China, but let's be smart about it. Don't drag us into a reckless war. Don't inflate fear for political points, and stop pretending Trump has a plan when he left us worse off on trade.
The polling on do Americans trust Trump on the economy and do they blame him or Biden for the state of the economy right now, they've never been worse for Trump. So now the American people have moved from blaming Biden to now blaming Trump, and his own approval rating on the economy is plummeting pretty rapidly. Now, I know Trump well, as you do, and he won't like that. He won't like the fact that his economic polling is plummeting. So this has to work quite quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, Piers, I think, well, first of all, the just him walking into the UFC, like you said, we're going to get into, I've never seen anything like that. I mean, I saw Michael Jackson when I was a kid, and it was at that level, but we'll get into that. But Piers, here's my thing. Obviously, all we're going to hear is the fear-mongering from the other side. Everything from the past 8 years when he first came in, it was, we're going to go to war with Korea. He was a Russian asset. We're going to go to war. Everything is fear-mongering. Piers, the guy hasn't been in for 3 months. Everybody needs to just relax, just like Gordon said. Let it take time. And I have an analogy, Piers. Our country, like, you know what a heroin addict, when they finally stop doing the heroin and they put them in a room, they're detoxing, they're shaking, they're sweating, they're going through a bunch of, the bodies are convulsing. That's what America's going through, Piers. We've been hooked on this freaking government, everybody walking all over us, every country taking advantage of us. It's going to hurt for a little while, Piers, but guess what? The tariffs are going to work. Stock market jumped 400 points today. Everybody needs to chill. And then, Piers, by the way, how many factories are reopening? Steel jobs are coming back to America. Japan pledged $1 trillion to come here. The UAE committed $1.4 trillion in 10 years. Saudi Arabia just lined up $600 billion, possibly hitting $1 trillion. It's not small talk, it's respect. And Cenk said it's not the art of the deal. This is exactly what it is. He knows how to play this freaking game. Now he doesn't have all the Russia and all the crazy shit happening around him. Just give him some time. Let him cook. Everything's going to be okay. You'll see. Trust me.
All right, Cenk, trust Vinny.
Cheers. Yeah, no, I definitely don't. No offense, Vinny. So listen, what would have garnered trust is if he had done this in a rational way and said, here's the industries I'm protecting, here's the countries I'm targeting, and I'm going reciprocal. If China's got 20%, we're going to put 20% on them, and it's non-negotiable, right? Or we're going to negotiate it down to 0 so that we're got it fair for both sides. But to do 145%, I mean, you might as well do 1,000,000%. It doesn't make any sense. At that price, you can't sell any goods. So he's not thinking this through. He's doing this in a crazy way. And you guys are saying, hey, let's see how it plays out. It's only 3 months in. I get it, and that's fair. And there's a long way to go with 4 years. But what you can't say at the same time is that it's worked so far. It hasn't. It did crash the stock market. It did crash the bond market. And Donald Trump retracted those because he had crashed the markets. That's not part of any plan. That's just a giant screw up, and he got nothing in return. So you can say, hey, maybe he'll get better later, and that's always true, of course, right? But to say that he's cooking now, no, he's cooked, not cooking. And so far, he's done nothing but absolutely bungle it and got nothing in return.
Vincent went full rally mode, talking about how tariffs are somehow like detoxing from heroin. Sure, it sounds dramatic, but it doesn't actually mean anything. His whole point was trust the process, and Trump knows how to cook. But here's the thing, you don't put a turkey in the oven at 900 degrees and say let him cook. because that's what Trump's doing with these tariffs. A 145% tariff isn't a strategy, it's a headline stunt with no follow-through. Cenk made the much-needed reality check here. If you want to level the playing field with China or protect US industries, you don't just slap on random tariffs. You lay out a targeted, reciprocal plan, not a blanket policy that tanks markets and makes everything more expensive for working Americans. And it's not just theory. Trump's previous trade war with China cost the US about 300,000 jobs and raised prices for American consumers without meaningfully reshoring production. Also, that whole factories are reopening line, there's no wave of factory comebacks. Most of the investment that's happening is because of Biden's CHIPS Act and Inflation Reduction Act, not Trump's tariffs. The data backs it up.
But Cenk, what do you expect in 3 months, brother? It's gonna take time and it's gonna be ugly. China has owned our asses, Cenk, for how long? And the only thing I fear, Piers, the last time, because listen, at the end of the day, all these other countries they're gonna bend the knee. China is our actual threat. When people say they're our adversary, no, that's our enemy, okay, Piers? It's freaking China. And the last time Trump tried to hold them accountable and we had a trade war with China, a virus mysteriously leaked out of a lab that we not only opened, we funded, and the main guy behind the helm that this virus leaked from got a preemptive pardon and his hands were washed and he has no accountability. That's the only actual fear. Trump is the only one that is holding their freaking foot to the fire. And I'm sorry, Pierre. And Josh, you said at the beginning that I disagree when you said that people are hoping for the success. The majority of the people that I know on the left, Josh, hell no. They're like, no, they want it to fail. They want it to burn just so they could say it was Trump. It was Trump. We told you. That's not America, brother. We have the freaking president of the United States. He's the leader of the freaking free world. We have to back the guy. I'm not saying blindly back whatever the hell that he's doing. Cenk, I have some stuff that me and you agree on that he's doing that I don't agree with. But when it comes to this, bro, when it comes to China, that is the actual threat. They freaking, mind you, the past 4 years, they got away with everything. They were flying spy balloons, Piers. Nobody said shit, all right? They buy land at all of our military bases, nuclear missile bases in Malmstrom, Montana. Nobody says anything. They do whatever they want. And then when Xi comes to San Francisco, Newsom cleans the street, kisses his ass. It looked like freaking Beijing, all right? We finally got a guy that's holding their foot to the fire. Like I said, it's going to hurt. It's going to be a little turbulent. But, bro, the guy knows what he's doing. He's a freaking boss, and he's a businessman. He's going to be fine.
Let's clear something up. Trump's first tariff war with China didn't bring the pain to Beijing. It hit Americans harder. A 2019 report by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York found that US consumers and companies, not China, bore the brunt of the tariff costs. Prices went up, manufacturing growth slowed, farmers had to be bailed out with $28 billion in subsidies just to survive the fallout, and the idea that tariffs will take time is just a convenient way to sell economic pain without showing any proof that it'll work. If you're going to inflict short-term damage on the US economy, where's the plan for long-term gain? There wasn't one in 2018, and there still isn't one now. Also claiming that a virus conveniently leaked because Trump stood up to China, that's pure conspiracy theory territory. There's zero evidence to support that narrative. It's a distraction from having to actually talk policy. What we need right now are smart, targeted trade strategies, not rhetorical fireworks and vibes. China's influence is real, but shouting Trump's a boss doesn't fix our supply chains or lower costs for working families. Strategy does. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.